Injury, overtraining, bonking, illness, reds, all things that can hugely affect our training if you don't know the warning signs. But what if you did know the warning signs? I'll tell you what that means. Consistency. And consistency means better runner. And you know what else makes you a better runner? Subscribing to this channel so we can give you even more help. That's it. Just clicking a button. And let's explore the warning signs of running and how you spot them early. One of the things I think actually is really difficult to spot before it gets too late is the signs and the symptoms of overtraining, because injury is obviously a sign of overtraining, but that's too late.
Yes.
Right? If you get injured, it's clear that you have overtrained or you've been unlucky. So what are some of the signs and symptoms that you can use to spot overtraining before it gets to that point, or even to a lesser point, just when you're too tired to get the quality out of the training? Off we go. Oh, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a few signs of overtraining, because here's the thing about overtraining. In isolation, any of the signs that I'm about to give you, they probably aren't overtraining. That could just be an isolated incident on a particular day. But the thing with overtraining is it tends to be a culmination of a few things that, if put together, would be the sign in itself, if that makes sense. And the first one is, have you ever just generally felt, even before you get to your session, just tired? And that doesn't happen on just one singular session. Before every session, there's just that, I would actually call it, instead of tiredness, fatigue. Tiredness is like lack of sleep. Fatigue is when you train too hard. That's definitely a sign. Would you say, Mary?
Yes, I would.
She loves being put on the spot. I'm going to try and take you on a 300 meters with me. This is a stupid idea. Okay. Okay. Let's go. While I'm trying to recover and catch my breath, another surefire sign of overtraining is if you regularly can't hit the paces that you've been used to, or even, to be honest with you, even close. Of course, there's an up and down with training, there's peaks and troughs. When you're under quite a hard load, I would say your ability to hit top paces is probably not quite there. But if you're consistently unable to, for a long period of time, even hit the paces you would usually think normal, then that's another really good sign of overtraining, especially if you add that to the fatigue. And finally, add to that another sign being lack of motivation. Like, are you excited by running? Are you excited to come to the track, or is it starting to feel like a function? Is it starting to feel like something you have to do instead of something you get to do? And if you put all of those three things together consistently, you're feeling all three things. You need to dial it back. You need to think about maybe some cross training, maybe some just having shorter sessions. Like this one is a 5K track session. We usually do 12K. Dial it back, take a rest, more sleep, hopefully avoid the classic sign of overtraining, which is injury. What about this one? Is there any way to spot running out of energy, or as we runners weirdly call it, bonking, during a race situation, or even training, to be fair? Because the feeling when you bonk is not a nice one. Legs and head feel disconnected, you're running through treacle, sometimes it even feels cold, voices feel distant. At the worst, your body could just shut down. But is there a way of spotting some of the more subtle signs to avoid this happening? Let's use a race of mine and a race of Mary's to highlight this. In Seville in 2020, Mary felt great on the start line. Training went well, she was ready to go. And when the race started, everything felt good, it felt easy. Of course, this is not a sign in itself, but one good metric to keep an eye on is the heart rate. Bonking is essentially running out of fuel, and how high your heart rate is dictates how quickly you're burning that fuel. So good or goal pace with a controlled heart rate, that's good. Good or goal pace with a heart rate a little bit high, that's a warning sign. Good fueling can counteract this a little bit, but not always. And this was the same with me in New York and Boston. A warning sign for me in Boston was running downhill near the start and my heart rate was still high. Now that's not normal, that's a warning sign. The other main sign, of course, is not feeling great and still pushing the pace you'd planned for. Again, this leads to elevated heart rate.
So Mary in Seville felt great, ran faster, but heart rate was high and it was ignored and she bonked. For me in Boston particularly, but also New York, I didn't feel great, but I pushed my goal pace anyway, and that meant high heart rate, and I ran out of energy. 2 ways to achieve the same rubbish outcome. But marathons are about learning. It's not like we never make mistakes. In Chicago, we started slower, we fueled better, we listened to our bodies and we ran huge PBs. Ultimately, it's all about respecting and learning the distance and doing everything in your power to bring out the training on race day. Is there a way of spotting illness before it happens? There's actually a few ways, so I'm going to run you through it. Let's talk heart rate. Now, if you ever go out running and your heart rate is maybe higher than normal or lower than normal, usually over a few sessions, that's quite a good sign that something is on the horizon. The body's got this great way of protecting us. Sometimes it limits the heart rate, sometimes it increases it to try and work through the illness that's coming, but either way, I'd say if you usually train here and your heart rate's here or here, over a few sessions, might be a good sign to dial back what you're doing. And it's the same with heart rate variability. Now that can be tracked by a ring, it can be tracked by a watch, it can be tracked by an app, but it's a fascinating concept, fascinating idea. Take your heart rate. Let's say it's 60 beats per minute, that's 1 beat per second, right? Wrong. When you're relaxed and you're not ill, it could be 0.9 of a second, then 0.8 of a second, then 1.1. It's quite relaxed. The heart beats in a relaxed manner. When you've got illness coming, the body releases stress hormone that controls the heart rate and makes the variability less. So suddenly, your heart rate is every 1 second. And these pieces of technology, they can pick up on it and give you, it's almost like a built-in warning sign. Uh-oh, something's on the horizon. Maybe you want to dial this session back. Fantastic way of protecting yourself and keeping yourself consistent through training. Some other good ones: lack of sleep, downward spiral really. If you're coming into illness, you're sleeping worse, you're recovering worse, and finally increased body temperature. And again, rings, thermometer even, watches, they can pick up on this and they can give you a warning sign that if your body temperature is slightly increased, there might be something on the horizon. All of these really good ways of predicting what's just about to happen and then making course corrections, dial it back, hopefully, fingers crossed, avoid the illness in the first place, which is the aim, right? Because it's all about consistency. Did you know that there are warning signs for injuries if you know what to look for, and they are way before you ever get injured? This is the problem though. We tend, as runners, to push through most of the signs, but I'm going to spell it out for you and then what steps you can take on each of the warning signs when it comes to injury. Let's take me as a perfect example of when you do it right and when you do it wrong. Because the first stage, the first sign of injury is, have you ever woken up with like a stiffness in any part of your body? It might not be painful, but it's like tight, okay? I've had it in the hips, I've had it in the Achilles, I've had it in the hamstrings. Doesn't hurt to run on, but it's tight. That's stage 1. You need to do something at this point. So if you ignore the stiffness or the tightness at this point, then one of two things are going to happen. It's going to carry on, it's going to be stiff, or it's going to progress to stage 2, which is soreness, actual pain. But if you get to this point and you think, this doesn't feel right, I need to do something about it, like I did last summer whilst we were training for the Chicago Marathon, then that might be as far as it gets. It might just get to stiffness, tightness. You get some treatment. In my case, I got 3D run analysis. I went to see a physio who gave me some fantastic exercises, and that stiffness, it never progressed any further. So that's stage 1. And you know what? I let it progress from tightness to soreness twice. And how did that work out for me? Well, in the New York and the Boston training block, I actually ended up on the elliptical because I had to give my legs, my calves a rest because my Achilles were just on fire every day. And the thing is, if you ignore the soreness and you do nothing about it, then that's almost definitely a free pass to injury, like almost certainly, because
That is your body telling you, please don't do this, this is hurting. And the problem is, the Achilles, if it's sore there, might not actually be the problem. In my situation, I think it was actually weak hamstrings that I had to strengthen. So my message would actually be, if it's tight, if it's stiff, get it sorted early doors, and you'll probably never go past that point. That's warning sign number one. If you let it go past that point into soreness, definitely go and find someone, definitely go and see someone. So can you come back from the brink? Yes, but should you get to the brink in the first place? No. From tightness or stiffness, sort it, don't let it move into soreness. If it moves into soreness, sort it, because it's only going one way after that.
Have you heard of REDS? Because in the last few years it's had some really good coverage as a problem for many runners and athletes, and I hadn't really thought about it, even though myself, I suffered from this many years ago. REDS stands for Relative Energy Deficiency in Sport, and essentially it's when an athlete isn't taking in the energy they need to meet the demands of their life and their training. So they're running at negative energy levels, and that can have quite serious performance and health impacts. So what can these performance or health impacts be? Well, firstly, injury, because your bone density is going to be weaker, you're at risk of developing osteoporosis, and far more likely to develop an injury, and they can be quite serious. Also, you're going to struggle to keep up with the level of your training. Obviously, you haven't got the energy to meet the demands of that, so you can find that your progress or your performance plateaus or even declines. And mentally, the whole thing can be really tough. So potential mental health issues, obviously tiredness, fatigue, it can be a pretty bad place to be in. REDS actually used to be known as the female athlete triad, because another consequence of it is losing your menstrual cycle. Obviously that's only relative to females, but obviously this can impact males as well as females. So REDS encompasses all athletes. Okay, so we've talked about the consequences. Let's look at the signs you can look out for, and then the steps you can take to avoid REDS. So signs would be deep fatigue, niggles and kind of precursors or actually developing injury. And also, because of the hormonal imbalance REDS creates, you can suffer from mood swings, low mood as well. So there's some key indicators. Struggling to keep up with your training. They could all be signs showing that you're not taking in the energy to meet the demands of your training.
Okay, run done and time to wrap up this point. And one thing I haven't said yet is that REDS can be unintentional from the athlete's perspective, not realizing that they're not fueling their training adequately, causing these issues. Or it can be intentional and an athlete is restricting their eating and their fueling. And that one can be a tricky one to unpick. And if that is a situation that you or someone you know is facing, then I would suggest that it's not something that needs to be dealt with alone. And getting help, leaning on support, getting advice and guidance from friends or from professionals is the best way to navigate those kinds of issues.
Okay, you need to do two things. First of all, subscribe to the channel. Second of all, watch this video, because you're definitely going to like this one as well, which is the 5 warning signs that you're getting running wrong. Thanks for watching. Next Saturday we have our first ever High Rocks race. Terrifying. See you next week.